Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for November 26th, 2024. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life that you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment via audio or video. And we're streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share your questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gayle. We're going to start by recapping last week's Weekly Tittle, which was called Consumption Be Done About All This Stuff? The assignment was to examine your home and habits for evidence of consumerism clutter. Let's hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook who looked at their consumerism clutter situation this week. Please let us know in the comments. This is sort of a tittle report that I found on YouTube from Carrie, who writes, "Last December, I got carried away shopping at Costco. The next day, I returned a few things and said, sorry, I just went crazy and spent too much money on things I don't need. The employee said, everyone does, but good for you for knowing your limit and returning things. I was proud of myself."
That is a really great story of realizing that you've gone overboard, and you realize it right away, which is excellent. And I'm really proud that you made the extra trip right away the next day to return the stuff. Lots of people go, "Oh, I made a mistake," but then they don't quite go and return things, or the return sits around until it's too late. But you went back the next day to return things and got those items right back on the shelves for sale during the season when they were supposed to be sold, and you're getting your money back in your hands right away. So really, you did that full circle. You realized it was a problem. You went back to the store immediately. You gave away the stuff. You got the money back, and good for you for pulling that full circle and realizing it. When the stars got out of your eyes, you realized that you had got a little bit overboard and made it, and you went about recovering from it. And so, super proud of you for doing that. And it was a great story of, I woke up, I went, "Oh my gosh, I have buyer's remorse," and you went and took care of it right away. So that was awesome. Great job. And thanks for
That
sharing
really,
that.
that really is huge because we can attest to the many, 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 many people in our audience who have gone and bought too much and came home and realized they'd bought too much and then didn't do anything about it or
Right?
didn't do
That
any,
don't
at
return
least
them.
didn't do anything about it right away. So really
Yeah,
good for
yeah.
you. That's
It makes
terrific.
it's so much easier to recover and to get cooperation when you turn around the next day or that week and go back and get it done. And so that was really great. And so many piles in people's houses that I take out to donation are, "I needed to return that and now it's too late." I hear
Yeah.
that sentence so often and it's sitting in the chair, it's in the bag, it's in the box, it's packaged to go back, and it never actually gets all the way back. And so I donate a lot of stuff because somebody ran out of steam. And so instead of getting their money back, they end up donating it away unused and perfectly new, because they didn't follow through. And so good job for you for going to get your money back.
Ginger reports, I unsubscribed from 3 shopping emails that have snuck up on me.
Ooh, good one.
Yeah, that's great.
That's very good.
I've been unsubscribing like a fiend this week. Note to marketing professionals who might be listening, if you put the words Black Friday in the subject line of the email, I am almost certainly going to delete and unsubscribe. I don't want to hear about it. I just don't want to hear about it.
Right?
Especially when it's, like, let's like it's one thing if they were offering me, you know, cheap televisions or something I might be shopping for this time of year. I don't know, but I get Black Friday emails from like print shops and business related services. And I'm like,
It's one of those, it's one
why
of
do you think
those
this is what I'm thinking about spending money on the week
right
before
now.
Thanksgiving, you know?
Right. Yeah. And I guess it's just like it's become one of those seasons that everybody has to put out an email marketing thing to get on the bandwagon with everybody else. It's like, no, you don't. You
No,
don't really have to
no.
do that.
Here, crazy idea. You want to sell me something? Just, lower your prices. Just don't jack up your prices and create Black Friday sales for me, you know?
Right.
Ginger goes on to say, I looked for and passed along extra masks and hand sanitizers.
Oh.
That was something you specifically mentioned last week. That's a
Mm-hmm.
great one.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's another one here. Laura says, I spent all of Saturday morning shopping online, filling shopping carts, and letting them sit. I found tons of wants and even needs since I've been culling my closets, but I didn't push checkout. And I feel like I am having DTs. It's official. I'm an addict.
But if you think of this as you are now creating your own Christmas list for things that you need to suggest that people buy for you. So instead of buying them, you have a link and you can send it to someone and say, hey, this is what I want for Christmas. And here's the link. And then they will buy what you already picked. And so why not let that be, instead of your shopping list, let it be your Christmas list or whatever holiday you are into, and send those gift ideas to someone else to buy for you. And then see how many of them show up. You definitely don't want to be buying for yourself in this season. This is the season for buying, for other people. And so let them buy for you instead of you buying for you. Just a thought.
Paula says, not a tittle, but I decluttered half my hair. And I, as you can see, decluttered about 90% of my hair this week.
He did. He
Ta-da.
shocked me when I talked to him earlier this week. It's like, oh my God, you're bald again. Well, good for
Uh,
you. You decluttered your hair. That's a funny one.
Here's an interesting thing related to what we're saying. Bella says, saw in the news, retailers hire third-party companies to track returns. Best Buy denied one man for returning brand new Black Friday laptops because he's a frequent returner. That's
Oh,
interesting.
that is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and I know people that like buy with like my sister does that a lot. She will buy things for her kids, for her husband, and basically she's like, I'm going to give it a shot and see if they like it or it fits, and then I'll take it back. And so she does a whole lot of, I have to go and return this because it didn't work with whoever I bought it for,
Right.
which makes me insane, but it doesn't seem to bother her to make
Well,
another trip to Target or wherever.
and I would imagine that there's probably more latitude with clothes that they, you know,
Mm,
if they see you buying 8 and returning 3, you're not going to particularly get blacklisted for that. But if,
mm,
I think she mentioned Black Friday laptops, so we're talking big ticket items. I think if you're regularly returning things that cost hundreds or thousands of dollars, that you
mm.
might get flagged. Linda
Weird.
says, for this week's tittle, I've been preparing for Black Friday when I will be doing what I call reverse shopping. I've gathered up a few bags of clothes and linens to drop off at the donation shed in a nearby church parking lot. A local charity puts out a call for warm winter hats, so I've been using up leftover yarn, making those, and we'll drop them off. I have gathered some food items to drop off at the food pantry, and when I finish that reverse shopping run on Black Friday, I'll sit down and write a few checks to local charities which need donations, especially at this time of year. I've done this before on Black Friday and find it far more satisfying than joining in the frantic holiday shopping.
What a great way to reframe Black Friday. Awesome. As a way to reverse shop and give things away. I love that. What a great vision. And it includes, monetary donations too to your favorite charities. What a great idea. And how cool that you were being crafty about it and making crafty hats, winter hats for using up yarn. And ooh, I just love all kinds of that. There's all parts of that that I
That's a really
like.
good one. It
Being
really
crafty,
is.
you giving money, putting things out, clearing the pantry, clearing the closet. Great job. Ooh, very inspiring.
Okay, we're going to get right on to our main topic because we've prepared far more than we can possibly cover. I know that
It's always true.
we got a lot of good survey responses. So, we learn a lot when we consider the emotions and feelings associated with our possessions. The US Thanksgiving holiday is this Thursday, so we thought this week we would examine feelings of gratitude and how they intersect with the accumulation, management, and disposition of our stuff. Today, we're going to explore the role of gratitude in decision making and the work of decluttering and organizing.
For those in the US, happy Thanksgiving this week. Thinking about gratitude is a typical focus around this holiday, and I think that focus can apply to everyone, regardless of your interest in this American holiday. If we focus our thoughts on gratitude around clutter and how we're dealing with it, we can make this exercise specific for the Clutter Fairy audience, regardless of where you're currently living or what holidays you're currently following. I think I have to personally start this sharing about gratitude and clutter because organizing other people's stuff is my business. I'm in a slightly different position than the average audience member is, who is just trying to deal with their own stack of stuff, but not anyone else's. With that in mind, I have to say that I'm grateful every week that clients call me to help them with their organizing projects. I find doing this work beyond satisfying, and I'm grateful that my clients trust me to support them, trust me to guide them, and trust me enough to let me into their homes. My clients let me live a life of service that's so rewarding to me personally, and I believe is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. Many of you know that organizing is my second career, and I can't imagine my life without doing this work now, even though I hadn't even thought about it until I was 45 years old. So I'm always most grateful to have found work that I love and a client base that I love to serve and a rewarding purpose for my skill sets. It's not a small thing to me at all, and I am continuously grateful for that turn of events in my life. In addition to that, I'm also very grateful for this webcast that Ed and I produce each week now. It gives me a way to support people around the globe, which is only possible these days in the age of technology. I enjoy talking about organizing, and this podcast gives me a way to talk about as much as I want, which is, a lot. I'm grateful for the big audience of subscribers to the channel and all the other audience members who download the podcast or watch us on YouTube. We've built a wonderful Clutter Fairy community over the years, and I never would have predicted that audience. So I'm incredibly grateful for all of you that are watching and listening. Thank you for being a part of our Clutter Fairy family. Having said that for myself, now let's focus on you and gratitude related to your organizing projects. Thanks to everybody for their survey responses on this topic. First, we asked our audience to express your gratitude for something in your home that you plan to keep indefinitely. How does it support the life that you love? Got some really great answers here.
AG says, I have a couple pieces that my grandfather handmade for me that are both art and practical. One holds jewelry and the other holds some small items I collect. They're both special and useful.
I love that they're both, that's really great that they're both practical and sentimental. What a great piece to keep that reminds you of your grandfather, and you still get to use it because they're still practical. So that's really fabulous. And I know that we all have a few pieces like that that are in the house that remind us of someone that came from someone that originally belonged to someone else and that now you use as part of your home, and that makes them special. And it's great to have those things in our lives.
Yeah, there were several answers in the
Along that line,
along the
right?
lines of something someone handmade. Christine
Mm,
mentioned the wood chunk my son made in middle school shop class.
right.
That's pretty cool.
Right.
Allison says, family photos. The people I love deserve to be in my home in person or in pictures.
I certainly agree that family photos are something to be grateful for. As you get older, having that collection of photos to flip through and look at and remind you of your family life is a wonderful thing to have. And being able to have them and find them in the house, that's super important. So it's good that you have them, Allison, and that you keep track of where they are and make use of them. We all need to do that.
There's one I want to include because
Okay.
this one spoke to me. Kathy says, I'm grateful for my computer and internet. Without them, I couldn't work from home, which I've been doing for over 25 years and love. How long have I been doing this? 25 years this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they also connect me to uplifting, educational, and entertaining podcasts and videos. Through email, I have contact with friends and family more than by phone. When I want to learn how to do something or am curious about something, I just Google and find the information I want. Since this is a decluttering forum, I won't mention the convenience of online shopping. Yes, please do not mention that.
But it's a valid point. Like she is saying that because she has computer and internet, she can work from home, and that is a way that she wants to live her life. And so that's something to be grateful for. Absolutely.
I am, yeah, and I'm really grateful for the ability to share and obtain information so easily. That I just
Mm-hmm.
think it's just an amazing thing that human beings have put together. And yeah, it's got a lot of downsides too, lots of risk, lots of danger and trouble and
Issue.
noise
There's
and
lots of
argument.
issue.
Yeah, plenty of issues, but lots of good stuff too.
Mm.
Okay, Terry says, and I know this one will resonate with you. I love my beads and beading supplies. I enjoy
Yep.
wearing my beads, displaying them, and the friendships that have come from my beading hobbies. Beading supports my values of being creative and keeping my mind agile by trying new things.
Of course, I had to share that one. I love my beads too, Terry, and I appreciate the value of crafty friends and being creative too. I totally understand why you're grateful for all that. It is a it is a way for you to stretch your personality to, like you said, to keep your mind agile and to keep you in community and contact with people, which is so valuable. So I can totally get why you're basically saying this is my hobby and I love it and all the effects of my hobby. And you can substitute, any of you can substitute out from beads with fill in the blank hobby. And it works for everybody, right? Thank you for sharing that with Terry.
Ellen says, for now, my KitchenAid mixer and baking equipment. I love baking and cooking for those I love. Making them meals or treats is a way I can give them just a bit of a break in their hectic lives.
I really like this one. And, I thought of you when I read it because of the KitchenAid mixer, but it's practical gear and you're using the equipment and you're doing it to provide love and care for the people that you love and care about. And so I think you're showing that the objects in your house are being used and they're being used to do something that is rewarding to you and to them. And I can see why you'd be grateful for that. That's wonderful.
And yeah, I mean, we should all be grateful for KitchenAid. They make really, really fine equipment that lasts a very, very, very long
Long
time.
time,
Yeah.
right?
They're
It's
not
true.
cheap. They're not cheap, but they're worth it because they'll still be sitting there on your counter, 30 years from now, 50 years from
Right?
now. Assuming the ones they're making today are as good as the stuff they were making some decades ago. I had a KitchenAid mixer that I bought at auction in the 80s, and it was already a million years old at that time. And I kept that thing until there was a little knob that kept the bowl locked into the base,
Oh, yeah.
and that knob actually um it had the thing had rusted for a while. It had been like sitting in a barn or something before I had it.
Yeah.
And that eventually just got so messy, I decided to get rid of it. It still worked, but
You
the
couldn't lock
rusty
the
there
bowl in
were
place.
no, it would lock, but there were rusty parts that weren't
Oh,
weren't going to get better. So yeah.
making you nervous.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so our next survey question, we asked our viewers and listeners to describe someone or something that has helped you on your decluttering and organizing journey. And we said this may be an idea, a story, a book, a person, a resource, etc. We
Hmm.
asked people, besides the Clutter Fairy, because we weren't shopping for
We were trying to shop for
we weren't
compliments.
trying to just get compliments on our work. So Lynn said, I'm grateful for my stubborn determination to get it done. It may take me longer and need more need more breaks, but I don't give up. Now that 90% of the decluttering and organizing is done, I really enjoy my home and like being in it. That last 10% keeps nagging at me to get it done this winter with the cooler temps.
Being stubborn to get it done despite your limitations is a great mindset to be in. Not everybody can rest on that level of determination to keep them moving forward, even though they are reluctant. So it's great that you have that stubborn determination. And if you've got 90% of your decluttering done, it seems like you've got a win from having been stubborn and determined. So good for you. And I
Yeah.
like that's a good thing to be grateful for.
Well, another way to cast that is, I'm grateful for the part of my personality where I find my strength. That's kind of
Yes,
what she's saying there.
exactly.
Yeah.
I love it.
Leila says, my mother and I have spurred each other on to declutter for many years now. We have many laughs and fun moments when we declutter together.
That is so awesome that you have a built-in decluttering partner, and have an accountability partner between the two of you. And it's great that you can laugh about it and have fun, which is wonderful because not everybody finds that that is the truth when they work with their family member. So it's awesome that you guys are a team around it and can get something done. And that is really fabulous. So that's being grateful for that relationship and that joint accountability on your decluttering journey. That is a great thing to be grateful for. And thanks for sharing it. I'm sure everybody else wishes they could do that with their mother and laugh.
Several people in survey responses mentioned other decluttering resources, like Dana K. White came up several times.
Mm,
She's on our list of people to cover in organizers to cover in greater depth in a future episode.
mm.
Um, on that one, Catherine said Dana K. White's simple questions and the immediate "put it there now" statement has helped remove the clutter. It doesn't matter if I get pulled away early; everything has been dealt with at that point. And C, just initial C, says,
Yeah.
at first, I enjoyed the Fly Lady. Now it's Gayle and Dana K. White's no nonsense approaches, as in, some things need to be said straight to the point, like last week's consumption problem.
Right. Sometimes I just have to lay it out there for you. And I think Dana does the same thing. She has that no nonsense approach too. And so I'm glad you find it helpful. That's wonderful. And I appreciate that you're grateful for the support. We're grateful to provide it.
Allison says, I've read all sorts of decluttering and organizing books and listened to several podcasts. They've all helped in some way. Probably the most impactful is Marie Kondo. Never before gathered all like items together to sort through at once. It was a total game changer. Plus, her focus on gratitude for items being kept and let go really struck me.
Yeah, so that's part of Marie Kondo's basis for work is that, she wants you to take the things that you're going to release and thank them for their service. Like she wants you to tap into your gratitude for while they were with you and how they supported you before you release them. And so it's her version of having you focus on why something was good for you, why something was useful for you, and that you can be grateful for that in that moment and still send it on to the next person to make use of as well. And that's really part of how she focuses. And it is true that lots of times when I'm working with people, pooling together, here, let's pull all the office supplies out and sort it all. And people are quite stunned to find out how much stuff is actually in the house in a particular category when we sort it all together. And then it makes it easier to make those choices about what can stay and what can go because I've made a huge pile of all the scissors in the house and there's 25 pairs of scissors. So sorting all together or as much of it is together as you can manage in the moment is a great way to give you context and prioritize one over another and be able to make some thoughtful choices about what can stay and what can go. And so that's the other, like Marie Kondo advocates all of it. And I think, when she did that, she didn't realize what that looked like for Americans and how many pieces of clothing and how much time it would take to get through a big pile of all the clothes in the house pulled into a pile. And so it is a technique that all organizers use to sort stuff into a like pile to help make judgment calls about what can stay and what can be released. And she just did it on a, you know, a level with steroids. That most of us don't want to commit to the amount of time it takes to clear out in one workflow all of the clothes in the house, for instance. And so it's part of her process. But the concept of sorting in general to make better decisions is a pervasive one that all organizers focus on. Thank you for sharing.
H said, therapy helped a lot with teaching me that clutter is a physical symptom of trauma. I grew up in a hoarder's nest and an emotionally abusive home. After that, resources like the Clutter Fairy, A Hoarder's Heart, and other YouTube channels gave me a framework and path to a much more peaceful and healthy environment.
Clutter is definitely an outer reflection of the inner mind, and therapy is supportive of understanding that inner journey that needs processing. So thanks for including us in your list of resources. And I really appreciate the reminder that we can be grateful for the therapy that helps us process the things that come up, the things that are in the way, and the things that cause the clutter in our house, the emotional journeys that are triggering and contributing to and making dealing with stuff hard. And that we can be grateful for those people that can sit in and talk with us and help us process our emotions and our experiences to get us to a better place. So thanks for that reminder, H. Appreciate that.
There were, interesting thing. 3 different people mentioned Don Aslett, Aslett, who wrote Clutter's Last Stand. And um,
That's an old book.
the paperback edition shows 2005, and I'm wondering if the hardcover was, that shows 2005 as well.
Mm,
There is no ebook version, um, but I just wanted to mention that one because 3
but it's
different
been
people
around.
mentioned Don Aslett as
Yeah,
influential.
I remember having a
Another
copy of that.
another interesting one. I'm reading this one because it sort of, makes me want to encourage people to look even, look farther afield for your inspiration. There's
Right.
inspiration all over the place. And Christine says, well, she starts by saying the Clutter Fairy is the best. So there's
Thank you,
that.
Christine.
She goes on to say, the best-selling novel, A Gentleman in Moscow, where a Russian count loses his possessions but finds a new life. Also, the classic novel, The Grapes of Wrath, about the Dust Bowl in America. A whole family loses most everything. I listen to both on audiobook as I declutter.
That to me was a shocking answer and a big surprise, and um, how interesting to use fictional storytelling as decluttering support. Like, here's people that have lost everything, and here's the tale of their life and what came about because of it. Fascinating thing to listen to while you're decluttering. And it's like, wow. The Grapes of Wrath and A Gentleman in Moscow. How fascinating. So cool. Whatever works for you. And I love that, you found some novel stories that support you in your decluttering journey. That's awesome.
I want to share a link. I'm going to put this in the in the in the
In the chat.
chat, and then also in the show notes, assuming I don't forget. The link is cfhou.com/results234, and that's the survey results from this episode. And
Okay.
there's some great stuff in there.
Yeah, I really wanted to encourage everybody to look at those survey results, because the last question in particular, the audience added all kinds of recommendations for books, podcasts, other YouTube channels, other organizers and authors that work in the organizing space. So it's a really great resource list that you can consult for more support. Besides us, there's lots of stuff out there, and the audience came through with all kinds of recommendations. So you don't even have to do any Googling. You can just go look at
Right?
our survey result and find a big old list of things you can ask for Christmas.
Okay, next we asked our survey respondents to describe something that you're grateful for having been able to declutter and release from your life.
Mm.
Leela says the 40 file boxes of comic books my husband used to own. It took him a long time to slowly release those after realizing they would not become the investment he had presumed they would be.
Right? Because you never know which is going to be the one. And
Right.
45 boxes is a lot of comic books, brother man. That is a lot of comic books. Clearly, that was, that was a lifetime collection that he had been making. And it's a perfect example of you built the collection. It was entertaining as you collected it. You read the comics. You liked like there was a whole bunch of life experience that happened because you created those 40 file boxes. But at the end, you didn't really need to keep them anymore. And having that collection redispersed to the next generation of people playing with comic books, I'm sure that was a big relief. And 45 boxes is not a small footprint. That is a lot of boxes. That would fill a room in somebody's house to have 45 boxes. So I'm sure you're very grateful to get that footprint of that room back for your own use. Thanks for sharing that, Leila.
Okay, I want to share a comment before we get too far away from the conversation about Don Aslett. D in the Sierras says, I met Don Aslett a few years ago when I visited his Museum of Clean in Pocatello, Idaho.
Uh,
I'm going to share a link. There's a website,
okay. The Museum of
museumofclean.com.
Clean.
Yeah, museumofclean.com. Check it out.
All right.
I just found it, have not looked at it yet, but it's an attractive looking front page, so that's all
Well,
I
because you
have to
said
go
that
on so far.
he had written the book about decluttering, but he also
Yeah, they're also
started a business of cleaning products.
yeah, there's a line of cleaning products under his name. Now, I've never seen them, so they may be regional, you know.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
But they're
Yeah, yeah.
also I did see that they're available on Amazon.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, Ria says this, so we're back to talking about things you're grateful for having
And
released.
released. Hmm.
Ria says, my Western saddle, which was practically new, but I kept far longer than I should have due to spending so much on it. It was a
Mm.
large piece, but also berated me every time I passed it.
Yeah, there's nothing like buyer's remorse barking at you for years as you carry something around thinking, I spent so much money on it, I can't release it. But I'm sure that if it was practically new and you passed it on to somebody that could use it, whether you sold it or not, how great that you sent it on and released yourself from the mental distress of feeling berated when you saw it. And a saddle again is not a small item. It takes up a lot of space. And if it just turned out to not be a good choice for you in your life, then I'm glad that you were able to finally release it and go, don't have to have that saddle. I can let it go. So I am also grateful that you were able to let it go, and good for you. We're proud. Yay.
An anonymous respondent said, after high school, I moved my saxophone with me everywhere, but never used it. Everyone kept telling me that it was a part of me that I shouldn't give up. After a few years, I sold it to another high school student, and she knew how to play better than me and was so happy. That brought a lot of
Uh,
satisfaction and gratitude to me because I brightened her life, and then I learned that the saxophone was meant to be passed on.
isn't that's a great story. And I totally get, like, when you're in high school, you end up in the marching band, you end up in this, the school jazz band, whatever. Sometimes people get into being musicians as a season of their life while they're in school. And it doesn't turn out to be your profession or your main passion in life. It doesn't become something else. It's just a way that you learned and a way that you developed your mind. And people turn to music because it does help. I mean, the mathematics of music helps people's brains grow better, right? It makes you smarter and more. There's all kinds of research about how learning music is helpful in the development of your brain. And so if you played in high school and had a good time and hung out with your friends and you were part of the band and you got to be part of a high school scene, and then it wasn't part of your latter life. That's fine. And it's great that you figured it out and gave it to a high school student that was in the middle of her season of being part of the band, right? And so she got a new saxophone and she liked it, and maybe she'll be great at it for a long time and keep it for herself forever and use it. We don't all end up with music careers of some kind on the other end. So if it wasn't you, that was a great thing to release. And how wonderful that you sent it on to another musician. That's awesome.
Yeah, cat butt.
Oh, Frankie, yeah, sorry. Frankie decided to stretch.
Naomi says, I played flute in high school, but never touched it after that. But I
Yeah,
didn't
it's,
get rid of my flute until I was in my 40s, by which time the flute had rusted.
oh, yeah, see, I get it. People that are into music can't imagine not being into music. But I think that in high school, a lot of us they get on the bandwagon because it's a way to participate in high school, and it's an experience to have, and it's something to try, and so we don't all become famous musicians afterwards. Sometimes we just were in the band in high school. And so good for you guys for sending it on. I'm sorry that the flute rusted and you didn't get to send it on before it had been sort of, faded away. That's a problem. But
J Jane commented, with Gail's help, I let my piano go in 2020. I was fortunate to be able to sell it on consignment. Due to arthritis, I no longer played it. Letting the piano go freed up a lot of floor space that's now better used by a storage cabinet.
no kidding, right? Any piano has a huge footprint, whether it's, like a grand piano that takes up a big square, or it's some kind of an upright wall piano that is up against the wall. It still takes up a lot of space. And so I'm sure you got much better use out of that space if you weren't playing anymore. That's fabulous. Good for you. Thanks for remembering it and telling us about it 4 years later.
Okay,
That's awesome.
here's one that I really liked. Suzanne says, another tough question. This one is something I managed to declutter years ago and before Marie Kondo and so many others hit the scene. I am grateful that I was able to persuade myself to declutter all my years 1 to 3 of the Oprah magazine, all my gardening magazines, and all but about 5 magazines. Talk about a huge weight off my shoulders, plus all the space it opened up. I never again subscribed to magazines. Life's too short.
True that. And it was a
Sing it,
thing,
Suzanne. Yeah,
right?
I'm a recovered magazine addict myself. I
And
used
the
to get a
Oprah
lot of
magazine,
magazines.
it was super popular. She put a lot of money into it. It was a well-produced magazine. It was always pretty. It always had really interesting information in it. Like, it wasn't a slouchy magazine. There was a reason why everybody kept those Oprah magazines. But having read them, you don't need to hold them forever. So I'm glad you made yourself declutter them. That's awesome. And now you don't have to have magazines. You can get that information some other way. So good for you. I'm sure that was hard, and yay.
What's interesting is that I've never taken my fondness for magazines to the electronic form. I
I know
I've tried, but it's just not the same.
it doesn't
And
translate well.
yeah, I think I think it's too hard. It's a little too hard to keep track. With a paper magazine, you can just leaf, and figure out, well, I've read this one, I'm done with this one. And with
Yeah.
they're a little too electronic magazines. The ones I've sampled, it's a little too, the navigation is a little too complicated. If I'd rather just sit down and read a book if it comes to that.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yep. Well,
Um,
there you go.
someone mentioned, let's see, who said it? Amanda said, OMG, all the National Geographic magazines in this house.
Well, and that was another one that the generation behind us, the generation that came before us, were the main targets of the Nat Geos, and everybody collected them because it was before the idea that this information was going to be digitally available. And of course, now you can get the whole history of Nat Geo in electronic form. So you don't have to store the magazines themselves, but a lot of households collected those magazines very diligently for all of the great information that were in them. And, and I've been taking Nat Geos to Texas Art Asylum for many years since then. Like, I've been disposing of those magazines for people to use in their artwork for some time since then.
Connie says I donated them 2 by 2 to doctors' waiting rooms.
There you go. That
A-
works too.
Naomi says I remember an article in a science spoof collection that extrapolated when the saved American Geographic magazines would be larger than the mass of the Earth. I guess American Geographic is what it's called in Canada.
That's so funny. Not a surprise. I mean, because people collected them for decades.
Oh
They didn't
yeah.
just collect them for a year. Like you would show up and a whole library wall would be full of Nat Geos that started from the beginning and went for, 6 decades or 5 decades worth of magazines. It's incredible. It was a thing that everybody collected for some reason.
Lee says I'm grateful, actually enthusiastic, to release paperwork, emails, and items affiliated with my previous job. So freeing.
Ooh, isn't that a wonderful thing? Yeah, and when you're in a specific job, all that stuff seems really important, but when you don't actually work for that company anymore, it suddenly becomes old news, right? And we have a hard time because we've been so focused on how important it was for so long. When it suddenly loses its potency, we have a hard time accepting that it's no longer potent. And so we don't release it very well, but I'm sure it was very freeing to let all that stuff go. So good for you. Paper in general. Ugh.
Yes.
Always good to let it go.
Okay, our last survey question. We invited survey participants to identify something in your space for which you feel grateful, but which you'd consider releasing so that someone else can enjoy and appreciate it. And Saskatchewan Jane said, Gaelic poetry book that was brought to Canada by my great grandma from Scotland.
Oh, isn't that a lovely thing that you could release out into the wild and not keep it? It's special that your grandma brought it and you've had it all this time, but you can probably send it on to the next person that needs to read Gaelic poetry.
Send it to someone who reads Gaelic.
Right? There's that. You gotta have the ability to read Gaelic.
Now, I don't know about Scots Gaelic, but you can actually learn Irish Gaelic, one version of it on Duolingo.
Oh,
I was studying that one for a while. So if you
yeah,
want
yeah, you did.
if Jane wants to reconsider and maybe try and learn to read the Gaelic poetry, that's also an option.
Okay, we don't
But
talk
no.
anybody into keeping stuff here.
Okay.
This is not the channel where I convince you to keep it. Mm, not my job.
Becky says, my cast iron skillet. I am so grateful that it has been passed down, but I realize I haven't been using it. A cast iron skillet is meant to be used regularly.
Right? By a cook that likes to get in front of the stove every day. So, yeah, you might as well send it down. Somebody else will find it useful, right? Cast iron skillets have been around. People have been using them for centuries. So, you might as well throw yours into the pile for someone else to pick up. That's a good one to release.
And also on the cast iron theme, Jean said, my Le Creuset cookware that is now too heavy to lift.
Mm.
I would love to send it to Ed. I'm gonna say don't because it will be too heavy for my old shoulders to manage too, lifting, either lifting it from those impossible to reach down below cabinets or trying to put it back up high on a shelf or something.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff that, as an organizer, I don't advocate that kind of stuff going over your head because
Yeah.
the potential of you killing yourself taking it down is so
Yes.
high.
You
And we
drop
really
a
don't want the crusade to fall down onto your head when you
you
try to pull it
drop
up from
that
overhead.
you drop that Le Creuset
You
um
did.
yeah, I was going to
You,
say that, like the stock pot. Have you seen their stock pot? It's,
oh, yeah, it's
my
huge,
gosh,
right?
that thing must be like 60 pounds or
The
something.
concussion, exactly. I
Nice,
I had
nice.
an organizer friend of mine who she's 5 foot something, little short person, and she was working in somebody's living room, and there was a uh, lantern, a train car lantern. There's basically a glass thing in a metal case with a handle, and it was up overhead. and she needed to pull it down because they were emptying the house, and she lost control of it, and it
Ooh.
hit her in the head.
Mm.
And she hit her in the head, and she caught it. It didn't break. She put it on the ground, and then she stood up, and she was like, wow, that really hurt. And the person next to her, she turned to the person next to her who was also working, and the girl was ashen looking, and she's like, you're bleeding. Apparently there was blood pouring down her head from the head injury. And so she went in the bathroom, and they tried to control it. And then they decided that perhaps she should go to the doctor. And so she got in her car and
Oh
started
my
to
gosh.
drive, and then called me while she was driving because she was concerned that someone could take over the job for her the next day because the movers were coming and yada yada. And I was like, Lisa, you are not driving with a head injury right now, are you? She's like, yeah. I'm like, stop it right now. Pull over. So she pulled herself over and ultimately called her husband to come pick her up, and they went to the ER, and the whole thing. But yeah, things coming down from above, dangerous, not a
Yes.
good solution. And if you can imagine Ed, 6'4", bending at the waist. So he basically bends at the level of the countertop and bends down and put his head and arms into a cabinet. It's like, if you're already closer to the ground, it's a little easier to do that. But for Ed, it's a major, he really has to pretzel himself to
I
get down to the lower cabinets.
If I need something out of a lower cabinet, I tend to, my first choice is ask Jaime.
Right? Send Jaime in.
Yes. My second
Right?
choice is get down on the ground, find what I need, hand it out to Jaime to put on the counter for me.
Right. And then try to get back up off the floor, which is a
Right,
whole
right.
nokay, nother thing, right?
Unfold
Yeah.
myself.
Right. This is why God invented roll-out shelves because, yeah.
Okay, and Lisa Beth says this back still on the subject of things you for which you're grateful that you'd consider releasing. Lisa Beth says games and books that I used in my 37 years of teaching deaf and hard of hearing students.
That is awesome. So you got 37 years of use out of those games and books, which is great. And you were grateful for having them. They helped you do your job. That's wonderful. And now I'm assuming you're retired. And so you're not teaching that stuff anymore. And so it's not really uh, work supplies anymore. It's not really something that you're actively using. And so this is a perfect collection of things that you can send on to the next collection of teachers doing that work. And I would go looking for um, a deaf school of some kind. You must have contacts in the field. And so reach out to some organization that could absorb those games and books and offer them to other teachers, and send that on, and with gratitude for their service to you for those 37 years. So great.
I wouldn't be surprised too if you could find Facebook resources,
Oh,
Facebook
yeah, yeah.
groups
Mm-hmm.
that organize people
Then
who work in
people
that
might want to
field.
do that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, let's
Excellent.
see. There was one more that I liked just because of this word she used. Selena says, my books, once I've read them, I'd love to decollect them.
Right? Isn't that awesome? Let's decollect our books, right? We collect them. We collect them in anticipation of reading them, and either we read them or we don't read them. And so
Right.
it is a collection that doesn't always get used, just like any other hobby. And so sometimes we have to release some of the unread collection without our actually reading them. And sometimes we have to release the books we have read, because if you've read them, then what is the point of hanging on to them after that? So, or at least whatever you're going to keep should be a much smaller subset of all the things that you've collected so far. And you have practical experience around that, Ed. You
Oh
did that
yeah.
decollecting process. So
Yeah.
why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, and I was thinking about the guy Selena's answer got me thinking about, the decollection process and as the reverse of the collection process where,
Yeah.
you know,
Release it out in the
you
wild
go you
after.
go admire it at a store and you bring it and then you bring it home and you admire it some more at home and you look through it and then you stick it up on the shelf and then it stays there as part of your collection. And when you're ready to decollect, I guess you take it down off the shelf, admire it some more, look it over, remind yourself what you loved about it. And then here's the key thing, put it in the box for donation, or
Right.
call the friend who you want to give it to, or be sure you take the next action
To
in
decollect it.
decollection.
I like the idea.
Set
I
it
like
free.
the verb decollect. That's,
Yeah.
I think we need to add that into our vernacular because I think that's a great, it implies the reverse process of collecting, and it's an equal unwinding. Just like winding up your collection, you have to unwind the collection. And I like
Yes.
that. That's a good visual.
Rowan says, I finally learned to not buy a book just because of the title slash subject. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the version of oh look it's shiny for book collectors, right? When you
Hmm.
see the title it grabs your attention, and yeah.
Yeah. I've been subject to the really, really clever title. The title I couldn't resist. And then I brought it
Right?
home and took a deeper
And there it
dive and
sat.
realized, yeah, the title was the best part.
I should have looked more closely. Yeah. Buyer's remorse based on book title collecting.
Okay, let's go on.
Okay.
I think to the part after the survey
Okay.
questions for
All
you.
right. So let me just say thank you to everybody who participated in the survey because your answers really create a wonderful list of gratitude from all kinds of angles. I really find it fascinating all the ways people hold stuff in their lives and how they see that stuff. And in the Clutter Fairy way of reframing things to something more positive, I want to offer this idea about gratitude in all your stuff. You can be grateful for the abundance in your life. If you have so much stuff that your house is overflowing and you're overwhelmed trying to manage it, then clearly you have benefited from a type of abundance. You can't accumulate an overfilled house without having an abundance of time, energy, and or money in your life. We often look at our stuffed houses with shame or distress or disgust, depending on the day of the week, but it also represents a level of having plenty that we can be grateful for. Instead of an empty house that reflects lack in your life, your space reflects a bounty that is now in itself a burden. We can start by looking at our homes as a place of abundance and be grateful for that condition. And then you can decide that this level of abundance is more of a burden, and it's okay to share the wealth with others, to send some of that over large pile of abundance to benefit others. Why not? Clearly, you've accumulated more than enough and you've got an excess to share. So this coming year, plan on sharing your excess out to others and be grateful for the ability to have so much that you can actually share away. It's another way to look at your space that might help you get your home more manageable for you. Grateful for the abundance and grateful for the ability to share that excess with others. Just a thought to close our day today.
Wonderful. Let's talk about next week. We're going to be back at the usual time on Tuesday, December 3rd. And I haven't written up I haven't come up with the title and description for this one yet, but the concept is how our past and our future, so that's stuff that we keep around that connects us to the past, and stuff that we keep around as part of our plans for the future, how these complicate living in the present. So join us next week for that one. Gayle, why don't you give us the title?
This title, as you could probably expect, is Give Thanks. This week's assignment is an exercise in gratitude for all the riches in your life that aren't stuff. Reflect on non-material things that have contributed to your happiness, growth, satisfaction, fulfillment, etc., such as people, relationships, ideas, lessons, experiences, journeys, and so on. And write down 3 things for which you're most grateful this week. And then come back and tell us about it next week because you know we love to hear about it.
We sure do. Okay, if you're watching this on YouTube, we want to do a little ad before we get to YouTube.
Oh,
Let's
yes.
do a little ad because
Okay, thank you.
I think it was, I can't remember now if it was Marcia. I think it was Marcia, might have been Martha, who said, explain to us again how we can book a virtual appointment.
Okay.
So
So it's an appointment type on my booking calendar for that. And there's the link to go straight to the virtual conversation.
That's
And
cfhou.com/virtual for our
right.
podcast listeners.
And basically, a virtual appointment is a 1 hour appointment. We get online together in Zoom, and with you and whatever device you're using, you can show me your space and we can talk about what's happening, what you need support around. And that process really goes very well because the cameras are so good these days. I can just ask you, show me what you're looking at, tell me what that is, can you open that cabinet, what's in there, what is that about? So all the questions I would normally ask, I do virtually just by you showing me. I just can't touch them physically, but I can still see what I need to see to give you advice and guidance about what to do. I've also, people have just used me as a way to help them plan so that they feel like they have a project and they're not quite sure how to tackle it. And we spend an hour talking about the project and I help them create a plan, what to do in what order, what not to do or what not to waste your time on, that kind of stuff. And so I help people create plans around work that they're trying to get done. I've
And
helped people pack online. Like I've worked with a couple that they were, having trouble deciding between them what things to keep, and so I acted as the mediator in their packing process. That was super fun.
those are, you typically do 1 hour appointments.
Mm-hmm. I have done some longer virtual ones when people wanted to get more work done, but generally I book them an hour at a time. And so you go online and create and select that virtual appointment type when you're booking, and it creates a Zoom link. It generates a Zoom for our meeting and sends you that information. And then we get online together and do our thing. And it's super fun for me. So
And
always
then
happy.
afterwards, the participant, excuse me, the participant has access to recording,
Yes,
right? You
if
share the
you
share
want to
the
watch it again, we can make that happen. So it's available out there.
Okay. All right. If you're watching this on YouTube, we would love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from you, so please keep your questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through the website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
And I'm going to add one more thing. This is how you can get straight to our channel on YouTube, cfhou.com/YouTube. If you want to go straight to the collection of videos in our video library, that's the way to go. So if you've randomly found a video, you want to go see some more, that's how you can get there. We appreciate you being here every week. That's certainly something I'm grateful for every week when we do this. So thank you for joining us, and we will be back next week. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.